From critics calling it the most interesting storytelling in all of Star Wars, to the fans who were disappointed by the first episode's disjointed story beats, here's what everyone thinks of The Mandalorian's latest season. Starting with CBR's overwhelming praise for the first 2 episodes. March 1st was a historic day for Star Wars fans. They were getting a new Bad Batch episode and a new Mandalorian episode. I can imagine everyone huddled up in front of their screens with their Baby Yoda mugs. And it was glorious. The episode may have been 35 minutes long, but it was packed to the brim with gorgeous visuals, snappy storytelling, and a foreshadowing of things to come. When CBR's Lisette Lanusa-Saenz finished watching it, she thought that it was like putting your favorite sweater on after a long vacation. Now that's wholesome. And just like Lisette, most fans felt a similar wave of emotions. There were hundreds of tweets welcoming back Din Djarin, Greef Karga, Bo-Katan, and of course Grogu. In fact, fans particularly enjoyed replaying the scene between Grogu and the Anzellans over and over again.
No, Grogu. Not a pet.
No, it's crazy. That's crazy.
It had that perfect blend of Star Wars humor, cuteness, and magic. But unlike the fans who had to wait until March 1st to watch the first episode, critics got early access to episodes 1 and 2, and their reactions might surprise you. Eric Davis from Fandango gave fans a high-level overview of the first 2 episodes, revealing that they had the classic Star Wars vibes, and just about everything you'd expect from Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Both the episodes are stuffed with exciting side quests, gorgeous action set pieces, and most of all, fun Grogu moments. Favreau promised fans that they'd be getting a lot more of Baby Yoda this time around, and that he wants to continue exploring more stories that involve him. And I'm glad that we're seeing that happen with Season 3, although not everyone was happy with the first episode. For one thing, it's the shortest season premiere in any Star Wars show yet, clocking in at 35 minutes with end credits. For comparison, Season 1 and 2's premieres had a runtime of 38 minutes and 51 minutes respectively, and Obi-Wan Kenobi's first episode was 52 minutes long. Hell, even the Book of Boba Fett's season premiere clocked in at 38 minutes. So it's easy to see that a lot of critics and fans were disappointed by the short runtime. And on top of that, it had to do some pretty heavy lifting. Everyone's been waiting for the 3rd season for almost 3 long years. But most of the episode was spent recapping previous plot points, re-establishing existing character arcs, and setting up Mando's journey to Mandalore. That's a lot to ask from the first episode, especially when it has to cater to a large fan base. But let's dive a little deeper. Did you notice something strange about the first episode's intro sequence? Well, Rolling Stone did, and they pointed out that episode 1 didn't mention Luke Skywalker, Ahsoka Tano, or even Grogu's memories of Order 66. And this is unusual because the Book of Boba Fett devoted an entire episode to them. Why wouldn't The Mandalorian mention them or show brief snippets of their time together? I know, Season 3's just about Mando's quest to redeem himself and reunite the Mandalorians after decades of being scattered across the galaxy, but he can't possibly do it alone, right? He needs allies, like Luke and Ahsoka, to recover Mandalore and help him with his side quests. That's the point of a shared universe. And you can be sure that Favreau and Filoni are moving towards an MCU-like universe, where every series will tie seamlessly into the next as part of a larger story. If you're gonna do that, then including Luke and Ahsoka in Season 3 is important, but it wouldn't work. The episode was already short enough and tried jumping from one story beat to the next without any cohesion. And if you felt like it was a disjointed mess, then you're not alone. It's really understandable that premieres are tough. You've got to establish season-long conflicts whilst introducing most of the season's cast in exciting ways. But critics felt that episode 1 didn't do any of that, and instead dumped buckets of exposition on the viewer. You can't expect a show to continuously show and not tell. That's an unreasonable expectation, even for a show as good as The Mandalorian. But Chapter 17 dialed it up to an 11 without offering the nuance of the previous episodes. Remember the rescue episode from Season 2? Luke flies in on his X-Wing, and the writers wordlessly showed you that it was an incredibly powerful Jedi coming to save Grogu. Most fans guessed on their first try that it was Luke who had just walked in, but that's not the point. The point is how the episode presented the moments to the audience and didn't have Bo-Katan or Moff Gideon dictate everything that was going on. Chapter 17 didn't do that. Instead of showing us some background information on Cara Dune's absence or hinting at it through subtext, Greef Karga tells the audience that she's joined the New Republic Special Forces and is still out there in the galaxy. That's really underwhelming, especially since audiences fell in love with her character over the last 2 seasons. I know that Gina Carano's no longer involved with Disney or Lucasfilm because of her anti-Semitic comments, but Favreau could have addressed her character's absence in a better way. And then there were the Pirates, which were a hit or miss with fans. Some complained that it dove into Pirates of the Caribbean territory, with the Pirate King being a knockoff of Davy Jones. While the VFX and costume design were top-notch, the overall story beat felt off. It was a great action set piece, but didn't offer much except a setup for future episodes. On the other hand, there are scenes that the fans and critics really loved. Anytime Mando was being a dad to Grogu was an instant win in everyone's book. And there was also the scene that paid homage to Terminator, when a legless IG-11 comes alive and starts crawling on the floor to get at Grogu. The scene went from exciting to downright terrifying, because most fans were expecting IG-11's maternal instincts to kick back in and for him to remember Grogu again. But I'm glad Favreau kept the scene realistic and made IG-11 revert back to his original programming to capture and kill the child.
Subparagraph 1618 of the Bondsman Guild Protocol waiver immediately produced asset to be terminated.
However, things change when you get to Episode 2. If critics were unhappy or unsatisfied with Season 3's premiere, then they ate all their words for Episode 2. In fact, they were so impressed that they dismissed the shortcomings of Episode 1 entirely. According to Inverse, Episode 2 kicks things into high gear, featuring a space trip to Tatooine to see Pelimoto.
Like a nuzzle shrew.
No complaints. Still faster than I know what to do with.
Well, I'll tune her up.
But don't worry, it's not a side quest where Mando and Grogu slip in and out of a planet without changing the narrative of the season. No, Episode 2 is an adventure unlike any in Star Wars. And coming from Inverse, that's high praise. It features intense action sequences, but also intricate world building, Star Wars lore, and more importantly, cohesion. Everything flows from the first second to the end credits, and the disjointedness of Episode 1 completely vanishes. I'm not gonna dive into spoiler territory in this video because most of you might not have seen it yet, but rest assured, if you're a die-hard fan of Star Wars, you're going to find something or someone you really love. Oh, and keep a lookout for Grogu too, because there's something coming, and you're not ready for it. And that's all I have on how the audience loved and hated the first look of The Mandalorian's 3rd season.